Hello, my name's Steve. Welcome to MC Motorcycling. Today I'd like to just talk to you about basic checks of your motorcycle before you take it out for a ride. Today we're using the Honda Africa Twin 1100 DCT as an example to do these basic checks with. Remember to read the manual. BOLTS stands for brakes, oil, lights, tyres, steering and suspension, and whilst you're checking the suspension, also check your chain. So, BOLTS, the first part, B, stands for brakes. We're going to look at the front brake first, so make sure that you have firm pressure on that front brake. Also, while you're up here, check the cylinder that holds your hydraulic fluid. Check, make sure there's no obvious leaking around the top edge. So squeezing that front brake, follow the brake lines down, check for any obvious bulges or obvious leaks from either of the calipers if you've got twin discs on the front, and check that the discs do not have any deep scoring or obvious cracks. With your rear brake, as with the front, check that you've got firm pressure on that back brake. So give it a firm squeeze, make sure that you've got pressure on there. Check the fluid level is between the two marks on the master reservoir. And then, as before, check the rear disc and the caliper for any obvious signs of leaks, and with the back brake, any sign of deep scoring or cracks that are immediately obvious. The next part of BOLTS is oil. Now, we recommend that you read the manual relevant to your machine, because every bike can differ on how you take the oil level. For example, on this bike here, the Africa Twin, you have to warm the bike up on the center stand. Check to find out whether it's checking the levels, whether it's on a side stand, center stand, if it has to be done cold, warm, or in the case of some bikes, actually hot. So stick with the Africa Twin for the moment. With this, we have two places to check oil. You've got the oil dipstick here, and the oil filler is here. With this particular model, the engine has to be run for approximately 3 to 5 minutes, then allowed to stand for 3 to 5 minutes, and you take the oil level by unscrewing this dipstick. It's not just a simple case of unscrewing the dipstick and checking. Again, read the manual. On this model, you have to undo the dipstick, take it out, wipe it, and put it back with the edge of the screw section just resting on the case, and then take the reading from that. Make sure that once you've checked your oil, if you've removed any of these caps, please make sure that you screw them back in tightly so they don't rattle loose, or worst of all, it drops onto the drive and picks up gravel and you transfer that dust to your crankcase. The next part of BOLTS is lights. Now, a number of bikes, you can't get the lights to come on until the engine actually starts, so be aware of that. With this particular model, I can turn the ignition on and I can see that my lights are working, and with this particular model the lights are already on for the indicators as markers, and it's a case of simply flick your switch from side to side to make sure that all your indicators work, not forgetting that you can just put your hand over the back and get that reflection onto your hand there. Whilst we're on this side of the machine, you've also got to think about a quick stationary check of the horn. So a little double tap just to make sure that those are all correctly operating. With the back brake, just walk round to the other side and use your foot on the foot brake. Do not lean over the machine, because there is a risk that you could push the machine over and damage yourself or the machine itself. So firm pressure on that foot brake, put your hand behind, and you can see that those lights are working. With tyres, which is what we're looking at now, know what the limit is. Now the legal limit is 1 mil. However, check your handbook, because some manufacturers recommend that you change your tyres 2 millimeters. So we're going to look at the tyres. Remember that you should not have any cuts, tears, lumps or bulges in your tyre. Remember, in your manual it will tell you what the tyre pressure should be. For example, on this machine I run my tyres at 33 front, 36 on the rear. Tyre wear indicators. On the side of your tyre you will find a TWI mark on that tyre, which will then show you where the wear bars are in the tread. If you follow the tyre over, you will see that there are a number of raised bars on that tread. Now, on the front tyre I was talking about cuts, tears and bulges, and just as we've come round to inspect the rear tyre on this, we discover that here there is a cut. Now in itself it appears quite innocuous, however the depth of that is such that it goes all the way down to the cording, which now means that this tyre is going to compromise my safety at any great speed, so this tyre will need to be replaced. So the last thing we're going to look at is steering and suspension. So with the steering, just put a little bit of weight on the back of the bike if you're lucky enough to have a centre stand, and move the steering smoothly from side to side. What I'm looking for here is any obvious clicks or knocks that would indicate a wearing headstock bearing. If you don't have a centre stand, then get the bike upright on the two wheels and then turn as before side to side to find out if that headstock bearing is okay. Moving on to the rear suspension. Now some motorcycles have a single suspension unit, as in this particular model here. Other motorcycles have other units that will come from the rear swinging arm to just under the seat. So sticking with this particular model, we just visually check the spring for any signs of damage or breaking, and also looking for any evidence of oil leaking onto that unit. Whilst I'm down here, I'm also going to check the chain, and as before, read the manual.